This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. So I've been thinking about this woman we're stuck calling Meghan Markle and her downright creepy obsession with copying every damn thing. Looking at the calculated moves she's pulled to mimic Diana, it's like, what is going on inside her head? Either Meghan's seriously unhinged and we've all failed miserably as a society to get her help, or the puppet masters behind her orchestrated this whole copycat charade, not just to entrap Harry, but also to keep people talking to eventually serve some shady next level scheme. Whatever it is, it's turned out to be a complete mess. Was the whole idea to morph into the next Diana just a clever way to unlock doors across the Commonwealth and push some hidden agenda? Maybe, but we really don't know. Whatever the plan, it's only managed to make Meghan come across as deeply troubled. When you trace how this Diana connection started gaining this momentum, it's funny how Andrew Morton rarely comes up in the conversation. Maybe that's because his book on Meghan dropped back in 2018 when people weren't dissecting Meghan's every move like they are now. At the time, some whispered that Morton might have had direct contact with Meghan, something Morton brushed off several times in interviews. But then again, Omid Scobie also swore up and down he had no involvement with her for Finding Freedom, and we all know how that turned out. A complete total lie. So it's not exactly a leap to think Meghan could have had a hand in Morton's book. After all, Morton famously downplayed his direct role with Diana at first, only for us to later learn he was in deep with Diana. And since Meghan's made it her mission to mirror every single thing about Diana, would it really be that shocking if Meghan or her team tapped Morton to pen that first glowing intro to Meghan Markle and set the stage for the avalanche of contradictions and shaky narratives that followed? I think it's something that we should start thinking about. And I'd like to piggyback off of a video I did earlier this week about the narrative around Meghan's time in Argentina. I just can't let go of it and remembered Andrew Morton came to the table with a completely different story that we really need to revisit now. This is what Andrew Morton wrote in his book at the time in 2018. In chapter 4, titled, "Can You Say Hi?", Morton writes, "By the start of her junior year, it was clear that if Meghan continued at her current pace, she would earn most of her credits for her degree way ahead of schedule." Because you know, Meghan is a genius, right? Just for fun, she took a course in industrial engineering, her professor choosing the French classic Le Petit Prince par Antoine de Saint-Exupéry as a set text. As she later wrote in her blog, The Tig, it was a seemingly odd choice, but at the end of the day, the takeaway was a self-empowerment and motivational bent that I apply to decision-making in my life to this very day. With time on her side and still unsure about her path after university, she decided to go into the field to gain some practical experience in international relations. She knew that her uncle, Mick Markle, was employed as a specialist in communication systems for the U.S. government. The talk in the family was that he worked for the CIA, the government's overseas spying arm. So she approached him to ask for his help in getting her an internship abroad with the State Department. "Meghan, I will help you if I can," he replied. Help her he did. Uncle Mick pulled a few strings, and even though Meghan was quite late in submitting the application paperwork, that was overlooked because of her excellent academic record and her uncle's influence. Soon after, she was informed that she had secured a 6-week internship as a junior press officer at the American Embassy in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It was quite the adventure for the 20-year-old, flying from Los Angeles to Buenos Aires on her own. She joined a team of around 28 State Department officials and guards in the mid-size American enclave. Before starting work, she was given an orientation of the building complex and the city, safety being the primary focus. The young student was warned about where to avoid, what to do in an emergency, and which telephone numbers to call. Basic but vital information. With the anniversary of 9/11 approaching, all American embassies around the world, including that in Buenos Aires, had been placed on Code Orange security, the second highest level. For the most part, her day-to-day life was the routine and mundane world of the office grunt, filing, answering phones, and drafting letters. As a consummate team player, she impressed her superiors with her enthusiasm and demeanor. She was a willing worker, undertaking the tedious, run-of-the-mill jobs quickly and efficiently. Her superior, Mark Krishik, now retired, remembered her as a young woman who was good to work with and who carried out her assignments with efficiency and ingenuity. Though memories are hazy, there was talk of a dalliance with a U.S. Marine tasked with guarding the embassy compound, and an Argentinian businessman who sent his chauffeur-driven limousine to take her out for dinner. There were even reports of a Buenos Aires clairvoyant who, it later emerged, had conveniently described her marrying a man with curly red hair. As it was her 21st birthday on August 4, 2002, she was given permission to travel in the convoy that was picking up the U.S. Finance Secretary Paul O'Neill, who was paying a whistle-stop visit to South America. It was a treat. However, her opportunity to be treated like a VIP for an hour or two rapidly turned into a terrifying ordeal. She was waiting in the motorcade when Secretary O'Neill landed at Ezeiza International Airport, 15 miles outside the center of Buenos Aires. Argentina had recently defaulted on a $141 billion debt, and neither the International Monetary Fund nor the American government were in any mood to bail them out. Before he left Washington, D.C., O'Neill had announced that South American nations would have policies in place to ensure that aid is not diverted to Swiss bank accounts. Though his target was the corrupt political elites, siphoning off billions of dollars into their own personal bank accounts, the suffering man and woman in the street blamed the United States for the economic calamity that had befallen them. After he landed at precisely 5 o'clock, O'Neill's motorcade drove to a meeting with President Eduardo Dualde, head of the interim government. Though O'Neill was expecting a bumpy ride, even he was perturbed when banner-waving demonstrators surrounded the convoy. I remember the arrival because protesters banged on my limo with their placards. It was a memorable event, he later deadpanned. The junior press officer was terrified, recalling that it was the scariest moment of her life. It was all the more concerning, not only because of the impending anniversary of 9/11, but because of intelligence reports suggesting that Islamic militants could be setting up a network in South America. Meghan would have already been wary, and it's easy to imagine how frightening she would have found an angry mob of protesters attacking her car. However, the experience didn't seem to put her off pondering her future inside the government agency. If she had stayed with the State Department, she would have been an excellent addition to the U.S. diplomatic corps. She had all that it takes to be a successful diplomat, Mark Krishik later recalled. Certainly, she was sufficiently committed to a career with the State Department to take the Foreign Service Officer test while she was still in Argentina. The 3-hour exam is a mix of politics, history, general knowledge, and maths, requiring an awareness of everything from the origin of bebop to East Asian labor laws. It proved a stretch too far. Meghan, much to her disappointment, failed the exam. She did, though, fly to Madrid to take a 6-week course in Spanish on the International Education for Students program. It was an added string to her bow just in case she wanted to give the world of diplomacy another try. When she returned to Northwestern, she was able to regale her friends with tales of tapas and tango and tried to brush off her regret over missing the mark on her Foreign Service officer tests. In any case, fate, it would seem, was pushing her into the world of entertainment. Her lighting director father pulled favors to put her forward for a casual role in General Hospital. just as he had done with the eldest daughter almost a decade earlier. In November 2002, Meghan auditioned for a day player role in which she said around 5 lines. Thanks to her father's influence, she got the part of a nurse named Jill. The episode aired just before Thanksgiving. A few weeks later, she was at a holiday party with friends when she was approached by a man who introduced himself as Drew. Instead of wanting to date her, he wanted to manage her. A friend had slipped him a copy of a student film in which Meghan had appeared, and he was impressed, calling Meghan to tell her, "You know what? You're going to make money, and I'll take 10%. I think you should stick around." But at that time in her life, Meghan couldn't stick around. She had courses to finish back at Northwestern and a graduation to attend. As she saw it, as one door had closed, another one had opened. If the State Department didn't want her, maybe Hollywood did. And there you have it, folks. That's Andrew Morton's version of Meghan's time in Argentina. So now, when we stop and think about the amount of versions we have, I'm counting at least 6 different versions of Meghan's time down in Argentina. Did she go down there for a month, according to Samantha in her book? Did she go down there for a couple months to intern, according to Meghan in her recent With Love, Meghan? Did she go down there to work with the United States Embassy? Or did she go over on a work abroad, study abroad program, as Samantha suggested in her recent interview? Did Meghan go to Spain right after that for another 6 weeks? If so, how is it that she was able to get back in time to do this audition for General Hospital? Another thing that I want to point out is in Samantha's book, after she's talking about Uncle Mike getting her this internship and Meghan was being so ungrateful that she didn't even thank her father or Uncle Mike, Mick, whatever his name is, she writes here in this last paragraph, she goes, "Since I was writing a 200-page paper and I was exhausted, I would have gladly traded places with her, but I doubted she would have wanted to trade places with me. She seemed like she was exhilarated. When she got back to her apartment, I knew that she had been through a whirlwind experience, and the return to Los Angeles would seem boring compared to what she had just experienced. Within a week, I got a call from her, and she was feeling somewhat depressed. I had no idea what she could feel that way about, because she just had an incredible experience. I was concerned because she didn't seem like herself, and I thought she would call Nikki when she was depressed, rather than me. She's my sister, so I was open to whatever she needed. She said she was having headaches to go with it all. I thought that was probably because of such a contrast between the excitement of being in Argentina and being back in Los Angeles without a lot going on. She didn't tell me if it had anything to do with a relationship or not, and I didn't pry because I knew that it was her business and she would tell me whatever she wanted to. The devil is in the details, folks, and this is where the whole entire story collapses. So if, let's say, we give the benefit of the doubt, Meghan was on this convoy on her birthday, August 4, 2002, as Andrew Morton says, and she was there for 6 weeks. Now, the problem with this story and why it's getting so difficult to believe that Meghan even went to Argentina is the shifting of the timeline. So when we look at when Meghan went down there, nobody can actually pinpoint exactly when Meghan went there to start this so-called internship and when she actually left. I mean, at this moment in time, I don't see any kind of documentation that she was really there, aside from all these various stories that were being told. The only date that we have to go on right now is that August 4th, 2002. So if Meghan was literally going into her junior year, then Tom Bower's version of it that he got from Thomas Markle Sr. of Meghan going in her sophomore year falls flat. If we are to go along with this timeline, then also with Samantha, when you're looking at this August time frame, if Meghan, let's say, was there for a month, that would bring her into September. So here is the actual Northwestern academic year for 2002-2003. As you can see, if Meghan went off to Argentina, spent a month there, got back in the month of September, she would have had to have gone to Illinois, because that's where Northwestern is. What is she doing in LA with her own apartment? Okay, so now let's put Samantha Grant or Yvonne M. Hale, whatever her name is, to the side. Let's look at Andrew Morton. If we take at face value that Andrew Morton is telling us that Meghan went to Spain right after for another 5-6 weeks, this would put Meghan smack dab in the middle of fall semester. So when would Meghan have gone back to LA to audition and film for General Hospital and then fly back to Illinois to complete finals in that window of time? The actual episode that Meghan was in for General Hospital with those 5 lines aired on November 14, 2002. So the question is, when did Meghan actually audition for it, then actually be in LA to film it, when she was supposed to be either in Spain or in Chicago finishing or going through her junior year? So now this puts into question Meghan's attendance at Northwestern, which I've said in the past that I don't believe, and I've given my reasons and evidence as to why I don't believe Meghan graduated from Northwestern. Because now you're looking at this, how could Meghan be in 2 places at once? Not only to audition and do this General Hospital, but be off into Spain or in Chicago. And then you have Samantha in her book saying that right after Argentina, she came back to LA twiddling her thumbs, depressed. The story doesn't wash. And neither does Andrew Morton's story, because if Meghan was given this VIP treatment on her birthday, August 4, 2002, and being there for the arrival of the Secretary of Treasury, Paul O'Neill, then that's impossible, because Secretary O'Neill didn't arrive in Argentina until August 6, 2002. And I'll tell you this, I highly doubt that Meghan was in the same Suburban as this guy, because it was one Suburban with cop cars. And what was attacked was his Suburban. Meghan was not there, especially if they're saying that this took place on August 4, 2002. It's impossible. Paul O'Neill flew in on the 6th, and the protests and the attacks didn't happen until the 7th. So how can they say that Meghan was in the car going to the airport to get him? That's impossible. Never happened. Don't you see how that whole story just blew up? So now we go to Tom Bower's revenge. And this is where Tom Bower interviewed Thomas Markle Sr., of which the story of Argentina has Meghan going to Argentina in her second year, sophomore year, which would place her in 2001. And if you go by the Northwestern academic calendar, second year would have started in September of 2001. Now, what major event happened in 2001? 9/11. So Meghan was going into her second year, which would put her in after 9/11. So honestly, anybody believe that she was traveling and going abroad? Abso-fucking-lutely not. So if Meghan was traveling around in Europe or wherever the fuck she was, I call bullshit. The story doesn't wash from head to toe, because when you look at Uncle Mike or Uncle Mick, whatever his name is, he worked for the State Department and allegedly CIA. He would have known about the economic turmoil that was going on in Argentina and would have advised against it if, indeed, Uncle Mick, Uncle Mike existed and was Meghan's uncle. He would have said, no, I don't advise going down to Argentina right now because it's not really safe. We are having a bit of difficulty right now with our relationship between the United States and Argentina, especially since they cut the visas off for students. You know, there was a lot going on between the United States and Argentina that it wouldn't have been wise for Meghan to go during that time. But, you know, no mention of that. Aside from, oh, she's got protection around her, which, you know, when you look at the various versions, one point, Samantha's like, oh, yeah, if anything happened, Uncle Mike would just pick up the phone and make a phone call. Like, come on now. Like, this is so ridiculous at this point when, like, I'm talking about this out loud. I can't believe all of us fell for this shit. And knowing how pretentious Meghan is, do you honestly think that Meghan would have gone to a country where there was a potential for her to get kidnapped? No way. This was the actual climate and the reality of what was happening in Argentina at that time.
Promises of first world stability and affluence proved an illusion. By December 2001, recession and growing social unrest provoked a financial crisis. The government froze all deposit and savings accounts.
There will be no devaluation. The peso will remain equal to the dollar and fully convertible. We have defeated the speculators. All depositors' money is safe.
The government fell when the police killed 27 people in 2 days of rioting. The political and financial crisis continued.
Let's take the bull by the horns. Let's talk about our foreign debt. I announce that the Argentine state will stop payment of our foreign debt.
Five presidents and 3 finance ministers later, Argentina is the story of what happens in a world of global economics when local confidence collapses. The people of Argentina know chaos. Military dictators have come and gone along with economic crises, but this political and financial meltdown has undermined all of Argentine society, especially a middle class used to shopping in the United States, vacationing in Europe, and the comfort of life savings in the bank.
I had $180,000, but now I have about $18,000 in my possession. That's all I could get from the bank in the last 5 months. I don't think about the rest of my money in the bank. It doesn't exist. But I haven't given up on it yet. I'm still fighting for it. But it doesn't exist. It was a family investment belonging to my mother. She's a widow. And my brother. He has a disabled son. And me, I'm out of work.
For unemployed biology teacher Dori Arias, trying to get her family's money out of the banks has turned into a full-time occupation.
Well, at the beginning, they gave back dollars every week. A fixed amount. It was something like $250 a week. Then in February, they reduced the amount. That's when we all knew that they were not going to give us back most of our savings.
Though the banks are open, savings accounts remain frozen. Customers are allowed to withdraw just 1,200 pesos a month. In February, the government announced all dollar deposits would be converted into pesos. For years, the peso had been valued at $1. Since the collapse, it has sunk to just 30 cents. So Dori's $180,000 are technically worth just 50,000 pesos, if she can ever get them out. Every lunchtime, customers converge on the banking district of Buenos Aires, but not to make withdrawals.
We Argentinians, our families, and some of the foreigners living here are all being defrauded, abused, and despised by the political leadership, who are not interested in us at all.
You have to live up to this contract. If the bank made bad investments, it's the bank's problem. It's not my problem. so give me my money back.
Me sentí tonta,
I felt like a fool,
inútil,
useless,
impotente.
powerless. I hated
Tuve
them.
odio,
I wanted to kill them because even though they hadn't said it yet, they had begun to
que
defraud
aunque
me,
no habían anunciado nada,
and they were going to
habían
rob me.
comenzado a estafarme y me iban a robar. Y el que me robaba era
And the robbers were my
mi
government,
gobierno,
my
mi
state,
estado,
my country.
mi país. No
I
importa
don't
si
care
se
whether the
llama
bank is
HSBC,
HSBC, Banco Rio, Boston, Citibank,
Citibank, o cualquier
or
otro
any
banco
other
nacional
bank.
de acá. El que lo estaba
My own
permitiendo
government was allowing
era
it to
mi propio
happen.
gobierno, que apenas un mes
The
antes
same government
había
that a month
sacado
before
la ley
had
de
sworn all deposits
intangibilidad
were
de los
untouchable,
depósitos para convencernos a los ahorristas
to make people
de que
believe
nos
that our
lleváramos
savings
nuestro
were
dinero
safe.
porque estaba todo okay. La vida de la gente,
People's lives became
fue
banks
esto.
and money.
Los bancos, el
How to
dinero,
withdraw,
cómo
how to
sacarlo,
change it,
cómo
how to get it
cambiarlo,
out,
cómo
and how many
obtenerlo,
accounts you have.
cuántas cuentas tenés,
The more accounts you had
cuantas más
opened,
cuentas
the more
tenías,
money you could transfer
más
between
posibilidades de
them,
transferirlo, y más
and the more withdrawals
extracciones
you could make
por
each
semana
week
y
and
por
each
mes
month.
podías hacer.
It's a simple
Una
calculation.
cuenta muy simple, es matemática
It's
pura.
pure
Si
math.
yo tengo dos
If you have
cuentas,
two
puedo
accounts,
sacar
then you could take
solo
$2,000
$2,000 por
each
mes.
month.
Si yo tengo
And if you
10
had 10
cuentas, podré
accounts,
sacar
you could take
$10,000.
$10,000.
Hago mi
I do my
periplo
tour around the banks
por los
to
distintos
see if I was
bancos
lucky
para
enough to
ver
have a
si
transfer
tuve la suerte de
credited,
que se
if I can
acreditara
withdraw
una
something at
transferencia,
last.
si por
Because
fin puedo
sometimes
sacar,
you
porque a
can't at
veces no
3
se puede a las 3
p.m.,
de la tarde,
but at
pero a
7
las 7 de
p.m.,
la tarde uno
nobody
sabe
knows
por
why.
qué el sistema
The system says
decide, entonces uno
yes,
pone la
and then you
tarjeta
put your card in and
y entonces
bingo.
uno toma el
Then you
dinero
get
y
your
se lo
money
lleva.
and you take it with you.
Hasta parece que
It
uno está
seems like
robando
you're stealing your own
su
money.
propio dinero.
That's all I have for you today. I needed to get this off my chest because these are details that we just can't ignore. Every character you see on your screen have lied to the public several times over now. And this has been proven with their own words and actions, and I have shown you this on this channel through multiple videos. This is not misinformation. It is their purposeful misinformation in this PSYOPs. I don't know what else to tell you, except this is what is out there for everyone to see for themselves. If you don't take my word for it, then, I suggest go do your own research and compare for yourself. You will see the same things I'm showing you, but what do you guys think? Did Andrew Morton get tapped by Meghan's team and collaborating from the beginning? Do you think he knew Meghan was a fraud and went along with it? I kind of don't think he knew anything, just like the rest of us. I wonder what he thinks now. Anyhow, definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. Until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
I was such a fraud.